Yes, guys, happy Monday. I hope everyone is blessed. Welcome back to the YouTube. This is your daily market outlook for today. It is Monday, the 26th of January. But before we get into anything, I just want to make sure you guys understand that the content on this channel is for educational and informational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing shared here should be considered financial advice, investment, or trading advice. Always do your own research before making any financial decisions. Understand that trading and investing involves risk, and you should never risk more than you can afford to lose. So, with that being said, let's jump straight into the charts. We've got an interesting one today because everything decided to just go absolutely ape shit on on Friday. So yeah, man, obviously it's going to be a bit of an interesting one. Before we get into the charts, let's have a look at what's going on for this week. Monday, we've got some orange folder news for the euro. We've already just had that. And then for the dollar, which is at half two. Same again Tuesday, um, we've obviously got orange folder news at 4 p.m. And then going into Wednesday, Wednesday is quite a heavy one. Well, this week is just, to be fair anyway, with red folder news, we've got obviously Canadian dollar, AUD, USD, US dollar, Fed funds rate. We've got FOMC press conference at 8:30, so that'll be a big one. Thursday, unemployment claims as well, which is at half two. And then Friday, we've obviously got some more news. So quite a heavy week of news. Make sure that you guys are aware of that. Now going into the dollar, we're on the daily time frame, and we can just focus on what's going on currently at this moment in time. If we look at this area here, you can see that the market has just been dumping off, from last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday candles just dumping off. Now we've opened this week in a fresh daily demand area. We've got this daily demand area that caused all of this massive uptrend. We're finally back there right now. We're filled in this imbalance. So this is going to be intriguing to me to see how we react from here, to see if we can potentially, catch some longs on the dollar to, for one, fill in these imbalances and potentially then, can we see either this from a daily supply, or of course, can we just carry on upwards from here to create maybe some new highs? That is going to be something that is interesting going into this week and the future. So looking at the daily, what can I currently see? Well, in this situation here, we've got obviously all of this range that we can look at. First thing that I'm identifying is obviously imbalances. You can see there's a lot of imbalances. And then in between these imbalances, when we have this institutional candle, we have this little mini pullback here, which is here, which can be classed as it will most likely be a 4 hour and a 1 hour pullback, which is, you can class it as a daily supply or a 4 hour supply. So we have many areas that we can look out for. We have obviously this one, we have this one, and then this one's already been mitigated. So my two areas that I'm looking for are, these two areas here, this area here, and also this area here. So keeping an eye out on these two for the future, to look for shorts from, and then we can obviously make decisions from there. Going into the four, nothing obviously right now is quite happening. As of right now, you can see that the market's just dumping off. In order to participate for the dollar longs, I would want to see a significant candle like one of these institutional candles here. These candles that leave imbalances, that then we can potentially look for, a demand area to then look for, longs. That is what I'm going to be waiting for. I don't, these little mini consolidations, I'm not interested in. I want to see, something that is giving that I can go, yes, longs on the dollar. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Let me just make this a different color so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Something like this. In fact, my candles are black, so not really black, is it? And let me just quickly show you. Something like that. So you can see big institutional candle, and then we can obviously, identify a fresh demand area. Let me just change this rapid before I forget. Perfect. So that is it for the dollar. As of right now, we're consolidating inside of this daily demand area. If you look to the side, this is our 4 hour demand area here. and this is the imbalance just above that as well. So yeah, man, keep an eye out on that, and then let's see what's going to happen. Let's wait for something to give um, in order to then try and look to participate. Going into Euro USD, let's look at the daily time frame and see what is going on. You guys can see that we are obviously extremely bullish. You can see from this area of 4 hour imbalance and demand, which was a 4 hour demand area as well, which I talked about, give us a beautiful reaction. In fact, let me just mark this out. If you go from the low, which it literally wicked in, up to the top, 319 pips I gave out on this YouTube channel for Euro USD on here for the long term, which is insane. So looking at this area now, we of course have this long area here. We have this range here. So focusing on here, first thing I'm going to do is obviously where can I look for demand areas, because from a daily perspective we're bullish. So I want to see a pullback to then go and create them new daily higher highs. So looking at where we're currently at, you can probably see that we have many little areas here that we can come back into this daily demand area. We have a daily demand area above here, below here. We have a mini daily demand area here as well. So we have, predominantly three areas that I'm looking out for. Now, again, what do I focus on? Well, the first thing I focus on is the first demand area. If we come into this, seeing how we react from here to potentially then look for the longs. Because why am I going to think about these two areas right now when this is my first area of interest? And again, let's have a look at this 1 second. We are around the 50% mark of this range as well, which is, in the discounted area, which we can then obviously look for longs in. So that is my thoughts on the daily, which leads me on to the 4. And as you guys can see, from the 4 going into Friday, we had this bullishness away from here, which I called this area out for you guys as well, which was clean, which give us around 89 pips, and then actually give us around overall 227 pips, 228 pips from this demand area, which is pretty cool. I was waiting for a pullback into this demand area to then have this reaction, which we did get, but of course we didn't get the pullback to what I would like. So as of right now, I'm waiting to see if we can get a pullback into this demand area. And then obviously in this demand area, can we then look for the longs? That is my priority. And again, that demand area will line up with the daily demand area. So if you look to same from this low to this high, the 50%, it's the same area that we just identified on the daily time frame. So that's what I predominantly are looking for in your USD. Of course, we have these little mini 1 hour, these are more 1 hour little mini pullbacks here, as you guys can see, which can obviously cause a reaction. So yeah, it's something that you can keep an eye on, of course, but just for me personally, I would be waiting for this area on the 4. Looking at the 1, obviously this is a 1 hour, demand area here. And then where we're currently reacting from is this level of imbalance. So I'm not interested in, buying from here. I just want to see what happens, especially today, in order to then make a decision going forward. But yeah, that's something that you guys can obviously make a decision for yourselves. Now, GBP/USD, you guys can see that GBP/USD is obviously, again, extremely bullish. We've got this whole area here from this higher low to this higher high, which is our range, our daily range. And then same scenario, can we look for daily demand candles? Now, first off, this daily demand candle here is my, main thought. It's a clear, daily pullback, and then we get that bullishness. Yes, we have these areas here, which same scenario will most likely be 4 hour demand areas. And if I look at the 4 and drop down, you can see that these are valid 4 hour, demand areas. We've actually got one marked out there. So there's like one here, but this obviously failed to come into this. So yeah, we just got to be careful. We just got to be aware and waiting to see what happens. Obviously right now we're just consolidating, so I am really not interested in looking for, you know, shorts, for instance. Or longs. I got caught out with a trade. I think it was NZUSD on Friday, I think it was, for shorting into a demand area, but it didn't reach the demand area, and then we went bullish, and it was just a stupid trade. So, I'm going to be obviously back to myself and being a bit more careful rather than just trying to trade for the fun of it. So yeah, let's see what happens. Obviously, a lot to work with. I want to see if we can on these major pairs, get these pullbacks, clear so that we know where we can look to potentially long this from. And if we get a nice structural, standpoint for shorting, then of course we will look for shorts, or I will look for shorts on the lower time frames. But as you guys can see, just before I do move on, we do have, these areas of demand here to just keep an eye on. Of course, there's this little block here as well. But what I want to see from a daily perspective is, of course, at least a 50% pullback or around the 50% pullback, which is why this area and these areas are my favorites. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to come into there. So, trading plan, that's what you guys got to understand. Going into NZ, so NZUSD at this moment in time is obviously same as the other major pairs, extremely bullish. What you can see has happened at this moment in time is we've come into this fresh daily supply area. Again, aligns with this daily demand area on the dollar, which is nice to know. We've filled in this imbalance on this institutional candle, and now we're just chilling inside of this daily supply area. So we just got to wait and see what happens from this daily supply area, and see if we can get some sort of reaction to potentially look for shorts. As of right now, of course, we're just chilling in there. But looking at the daily, you can see first thing is from this higher low to the higher high. We have this 50% area here, which is a daily demand candle, and we also have the extreme level of daily demand area here. So, I want to see a pullback into this potentially from a daily. Looking at the four obviously it tells us a little bit different, extremely bullish by the way. But as you guys can see, we have this area of 4 hour demand, which it would be my next area of interest if we could dip, and then potentially see along from here. That would be something I'd be keeping, pardon me, my eye on. And the reason it's my 4 hour range is because look, higher high, higher low. This is more internal, to be fair. Higher high, higher low, higher high. All this other stuff in between is all internal 1 hour, 15-minute trends. This pullback is not a 4 hour, it's a 1 hour. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, man, that's what I'm looking for in regards to NZ USD. Now, of course, I'm just going to dissect this area where we're at right now, because obviously that was a daily supply, which is also, I'm going to start from the body, which is also a 4 hour supply area as well. So let me just move across. Come on, man. There we go. Which is also a 4 hour supply area, which we're currently at, which is valid. So if the dollar starts looking nice, if again we get a nice clean institutional candle away from here and you're liking the look of it, then of course you can, potentially identify a fresh supply area, and I would potentially look for shorts to a minimum of this area, seeing how we react potentially for long shorts, long term, or of course a scenario where this daily demand area carries on here. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in regards to that. Sorry about looking at my phone. It's going off at the moment. So AUD USD, pretty similar to the rest, of course. As of right now, I don't necessarily like this area, to on a daily for demands, we of course have start of an imbalance here, um, which could obviously be a valid area, but is not as fresh as a new. This daily supply is obviously there. Looking at this scenario right now, you can see that we have, of course, this bullishness here, this very, very trending AUD USD. So same scenarios on all of the major pairs, as you guys can already tell. What I'm looking for is, a dip here, a dip into the low parts. This area here, if you look at these scenarios, you can see that this is the extreme level of my demand, which is my main priority. And that's that's just my main focus. Like here, these are not valid. Last you don't like how here you can see there's a last sell daily candle before this big bullishness. These are mini pullbacks on the 1 hour, so they're not valid daily demand areas all the time. If we drop to the 4, you guys can see that we have clear for our demand areas that we can keep an eye on. Um, you can see what's working out here. We failed to have a pullback on Thursday here. We then identified this for our demand area. We didn't get the pullback into this, and then we just carried on. So it's just the same scenario, rinse and repeat. We have this area here as potentially our next for our demand area, which we failed to dip into this and then obviously go. So yeah, it's something to keep an eye on, of course, but this is a valid pullback area here on the 4 hour. So yeah, if you look at the one, yeah, it's pretty ugly. AU and NU are ugly in regards to just the extremely trending. But yeah, man, obviously if you look at some of these scenarios, by the way, you can see that the market, let's say from here, that's over 226 pips from this demand area. From this demand area, we didn't actually reach into this, so I'm not going to class that as, but from here, there's 179 pips. So, there's been a fair few areas that we have identified on these videos, which is good. So USD CAD, we've called the tops of this last week, was it, or the week before? Can't remember, was it the week before? 15th. Yeah, so not last week, but the week before, we called this daily supply area. So the tops of this supply area, you can see that at the moment, I've given out 257 pips on USD CAD from that daily supply, which is good. But yeah, obviously I'm waiting for this low to be broke. That was the target overall. At this moment in time, I'm not seeing, anything really that nice, apart from potentially looking at, this area here is a pullback as a daily supply. And then we have, like this extreme level of daily supply here. So obviously we're nowhere near that at this moment in time. If we drop down to the 4, you can see that we have, these 4 hour pullbacks that we just haven't had, come and basically mitigate. So we're right now just basically in a no man's land for me. All we're doing at this moment in time is we're just collecting, liquidity. We're just collecting these lows that are all, here, as you guys can see. We're just targeting these lows, collecting liquidity. So that is what is currently going on in regards to, this pair at the moment in time. So I'm just sitting on my hands and waiting. Where it's reacting from right now is this mini pullback here, which will be more of a 4 hour supply area. But you can see market obviously pull back, then obviously had a dump off, pull back into that supply area here. And now same scenario, we've dumped and then it's come back in, and now we're starting to slowly move away from there. So yeah, supply is in control as we speak. Now going into USD CHF, we have just dumped, which is good, man. You can see that we're currently in this range, from this lower high to this lower low. We had this, 1 second, this low broke here, which is positive. And yeah, man, pretty cool. I give out this area on, I don't know what bloody day is today. like, well, I give this area out anyway last week. Let me just quickly do this. I give this area out last week. We were talking about this on Friday morning. Friday morning session where we identified this as a 4 hour supply candle, but we talked about the fact that if you go to the one, or was it the two? Yeah, the 1 hour, these blue lines represented the fact that we was in an imbalance. And as you guys can see, and I said like, this could just basically melt off from here, and not tap into that supply. And we did just that, which is, amazing. Let me just mark this out. Yeah, we did that, which is amazing. And we actually moved around. Let me just double check again. There was a lot of pips, I can tell you that. From this imbalance, it moved currently around 171 pips, which is, insane. So yeah, man, quite proud of that. Like I said, we called that out on the Friday session. But yeah, going into the daily, we have a lot of imbalance to fill in here. So naturally, I'm waiting to see that the start of the imbalance on this daily time frame is, this area here. So if we look at it from a four, we can start to identify, some areas which straight away you can see that I have this area of supply here. This is a 4 hour supply candle. So yeah, man, obviously that is something that I'd be keeping my eye on, but of course we're nowhere near that at this moment in time. So, right now what's happened is you can see this little mini area here, which will be a 1 hour supply area. We dumped off, markets come back in. Let's just have a look on the one. You can see this little mini pullback. It's not enough for me to trade. I'm not going to come in and say, I trade that. I would not trade that. So I'm not marking this up and saying, oh, look at this that I caught. That's not me. Um, so yeah, you can see that this little institutional candle started the imbalance. We come in, tapped in, and that's where we're moving from. But yeah, not enough for me to participate. So USD CHF, I'm just waiting to see if we can get in any of this areas here. Again, it's going to be something that we just have to sit in our hands. But we have a heavy news week, so a lot can happen. Be obviously very aware of that going into this week. Now USD Japanese yen, man, like this has just done its own thing. This has just done its own thing. It's smashed through the daily demand candle without even like stopping to say hello. Because even if I look at the Japanese yen basket, it's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same scenario. You can see that this is just like dumped, bro. Like this has just gone, fuck this, I'm off. So yeah, looking at areas of demand, we have this area here, which we didn't tap into. If you guys can see, this area didn't tap into it. So we have a slight tiny imbalance above this daily demand. Um, and that's currently where we're at with USD Japanese yen. Now that aligns, of course, with the Japanese yen basket being inside of this daily supply candle. This daily supply candle was unmitigated. If you want to refine it, of course, you can refine it to this. So yeah, man, like obviously that's currently where the market is at. So if we do go short, for instance, from this daily supply candle, then of course, you can obviously look for longs on USD Japanese yen from this area, which would be, something to definitely keep an eye on. A lot of imbalances to fill, so it could be, some tasty pips to grab potentially from this daily demand area. But looking at this scenario, of course, if we look at it from a shorting perspective, then what I'd be waiting for is the markets to get into the upper part of here, which we're nowhere near. So yeah, priorities right now is just seeing how we react on this daily demand area. If we get a nice movement, then of course we can, potentially participate. And if you guys can see that daily demand candle is this 4 hour area of demand here. You guys can see the reason that this was unmitigated is because this area didn't get tapped into by this one or this one. And we have a little imbalance. Remember what I always say, if you guys have been with me a long time, I always say the market's looking to do, a few things. It's looking to seek liquidity and to rebalance itself. Rebalance can come in the form of imbalance, liquidity can come in the form of lows, highs, also imbalance. So yeah, man, it's something that you guys can obviously always consider when you're looking at the charts. But yeah, looking at the four, I'm not going to even mark anything out until we get some sort of significant high. What I'll be waiting for, if the market does react from here, can we see a significant break above, nice institutional candle, and then try and find a demand area that I could potentially look to long in and fill in these imbalances as a minimum. So that is something to keep an eye on for this week. But yeah, man, I'm sorry, to you guys that I haven't got, the clearest setups that I'm keeping an eye on today because it's just how the markets are and where they currently are at this moment in time. There's nothing that I can do, obviously personally, which I know that you guys will understand, of course. But yeah, man, as always, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to these YouTube videos. I'm only going to cover the major pairs today because I actually haven't had a look at the cross pairs at this moment in time. So yeah, if you have any questions that you guys want answering, feel free to obviously put in the comment section below. If you want to stay connected, please make sure that you go to my links in the bio, and you guys can obviously follow my Instagram and all that other, stuff as well. But other than that, guys, I appreciate every single person. I will see you guys in the morning tomorrow. God bless.